It's biology time. If you want to follow along, go ahead and actually no, go ahead and try this exam on your own first. It is a very well made exam. Note that I acknowledge that everything in this video and every question in here is made by Rosedale Academy. It's a great school, and this is, I think, a very well final exam if you have decided to self-study the course. Anyways, without much to do, let's go ahead and start. So, obviously, we're going to start with the multiple choice. Which row in the table contains the two organisms that are most closely related? So go ahead and see this. Row A has Felis dominicus and Meltis methydus. I don't want to read their name, but clearly they're different. And B, they're clearly different. B, they're a little similar. They have the same genus, Canis. C, they're not related at all. D, not really. E, not really. So we can go ahead and conclude that B is the answer. Which statement about vascular plants is false? So we look at it. Most vascular plants have true roots, stems, and leaves. Okay, that is correct. The sporophyte is the dominant generation for vascular plants, and that's correct. And we look at C. All vascular plants produce seeds for reproduction. That is actually not true because ferns are vascular plants and they reproduce by spores, which is not seeds. Which term describes a variety of internal and external forms in living organisms? Ecosystem diversity, definitely not true. Structural, it could be, but we could look at the other answers. Genetic, okay, definitely not. Species, no. Biological, no. So we go back and select that structural diversity was correct. Which would least likely be used to determine how closely two organisms are related? Anatomical evidence using fossils, I think, okay, it's pretty good. Developing scientific model using biodiversity data, not really. Anatomical evidence from living species, also a technique that we're still using. Physiological evidence, such as protein structure, which is also a technique that we're using. DNA evidence from living or dead organisms that we're still using. So B is the only answer that we're actually not using right now. Therefore, B is our best answer. Mendel's law of dominance states that in an organism there's going to be heterozygous and heterozygous trait, and only one of the two alleles is expressed. So this is a definition of Mendel's law of dominance. Therefore, that answer is A. Due to similar behaviors of genes and chromosomes, we can conclude that A. Genes and chromosomes perform similar functions. B. Chromosomes pair separate during meiosis. C. Genes linked on the same chromosome are sometimes separated. And D. Genes are located on the chromosomes. And E. None of the above. So, we can best conclude, actually, that D is correct, that genes are located on the chromosomes. This is not true. This has nothing to do with it, so D is the best answer. The genotype describes what? So out of the four answers we look at it, we could see genotype describes the combination of two or more alleles, because it definitely doesn't describe the physical appearance of an organism. That's phenotype, one allele of a gene, not true. So it's only the combination of two. Codons of the gene, this is grade 12 DNA, by the way. So E, once we have found that one of them is not true, E is automatically discarded. Non-disjunction results in failure to produce a protein. Not true. A missing chromosome in a gamete. That's correct. So B is our answer. On which unit does natural selection work directly? The individual, the cell, the population, the species, or the gene? So natural selection doesn't affect the cell. It doesn't affect the species. It affects one singular thing, and that means it affects the individual, which is A. Which of the following factors is most likely to contribute to gene flow between populations? Random mating? Not really, because random mating, it could be within a population. Migration? That is definitely correct, because once somebody moves and migrates to another population, there's definitely going to be gene flow. Alright, 11. Darwin proposed that natural selection occurs in an environment by favoring heritable features that make the organism better suited to survive and reproduce. That's correct. Darwin's law, this is a literal core concept is to survive and reproduce and be the fittest. Fittest means having the most grandchildren. Which one of the following is not a mechanism of natural evolutionary change? A, mutation. It definitely is. B, migration. C, genetic drift. D, non-random mating. And E, artificial selection. So all of these above, they are natural. They're completely pure natural. They can happen in the nature. While E is basically human interrupted. So E is our correct answer here. E is not a mechanism of natural evolutionary change. Which organelle do plants rely on for photosynthesis? We know that's chlorophyll. We know that's the chlorophyll pigments inside of the chloroplast. So I went for chlorophyll right away because I didn't see chloroplast, which I think a lot of people made mistaken on. But chloroplast is actually the the organelle. Chlorophyll pigment is actually a part of the chloroplast. So to be more generic, the best answer here is chloroplast, which is B. The phloem is a vascular tissue that consists of dead tubular cells. Not true. B. Transports sugar from the leaves to all parts of the plant. That is correct. So our correct answer is B. 15. Which of these structures is the outcome of reproduction in angiosperm? So A. Flower. Not true. C. Apple. Apple is fruit. D. Pollen. And E. Sperma. Oh my God. Spermatocyte, and B, seed. So seed is our answer here because it's not flower, it's not pollen, it's not apple. That's for flowers. Flowers produce pollen, and apple is a fruit. And this this is not even this is not any close to a structure. One thing that does not occur during inspiration is so. If you want to do this, you can have a moment and breathe to see what's going to happen. I just breath. So the intercostal muscles of the rib cage contract. That is correct. It does occur. The rib cage arises. Yeah, the rib cage extends out from the body. That's right, you're inspiring. Diaphragm relaxes. That's not true. When you breathe in, the diaphragm actually tends up and pulls it down. Anyways, the surface area of the small intestine is clearly increased by the VLI. We're done. Oh, no, we still have a few questions. Although the stomach is normally thought of as the major organ in the digestive process, most chemically digestion actually occurs in the duodenum, which is part of the small intestine, which E is our correct answer. The trachea connects larynx to the lower passage of the respiratory system. The trachea is located at the front of the neck and is composed of cartilages and ligaments. Complete the following statements by choosing the correct pair of terms below. The trachea branches into two smaller passages called bronchus, actually, and then bronchus in turn enters into the left and right lungs. So C is our answer. Complete the following statement by choosing the correct pair below. The blood in the capillaries has an concentration of CO2 relative to the alveoli because it is body tissues. Okay, so there's supposed to be a space of something here because it is going back or going to or blah blah blah. Anyways, so we know that the blood in the capillaries has a higher concentration of CO2 relative to alveoli because the CO2 is coming from body tissues, and we have to breathe it out. So C is our correct answer. It's returning from the body tissues. Thinking. You have designed an experiment to show that mold spores land on a favorable surface will germinate and produce hyphae. You have placed 2 slices of bread on a plate for several hours and sealed them into plastic bags and put the bags in the dark. Complete the procedure for the experiment. How long would you have to wait before you check the bread? What would you look for? Would you check both slices at the same time? What data do you collect? Create a data table showing results from your 2 pieces of slide. A condition were not adequate to support the growth of mold. B, the condition were adequate to support the growth of mold. So this is very similar to an actual lab, which okay. I guess some people only give these on grade 12, but Rosedale really gets ahead and they want you to do this for grade 11 because they think they don't think they are a private school and they're really advanced. Anyways, let's start. So procedure. So after sealing the bread in the plastic bags and placing dark, I will have to observe the bread slices periodically for signs of mold growth. B. I will check the bread after 3 to 5 days, as mold spores typically take this long to germinate and produce visible growth under favorable conditions. So what do I look for? Well, I will look for fuzzy or discolored patches that would usually appear in white or black, and I'll check both slices at the same time to compare them under identical conditions. What data would I collect? Well, I will record the presence or absence of the mold, obviously, the color of the mold, and the approximate, well, I guess I could measure out the area of the bread surface covered and the day it first appeared. So a data table, we could actually go ahead and just make one up right now because we're not actually doing the lab. Some teachers make their students do the lab and actually observe it on the test day. I think that's really cool. But anyways, so you would have this whole data table, and you were like, yeah, yes, this conditions were adequate, conditions were not adequate, mode present, yes, no, color of the mode, percent coverage, days observed, 4 or 5, whatever. Anyways, sometimes we're able to tell the genotype of an organism by knowing the phenotype. In the case of Mendel's pea plants, for example, round seeds are dominant over wrinkled seeds. For which plants carrying various combination of these traits could you tell the genotype of observation alone? So right here we can directly tell if you have a wrinkled seed, since they are recessive, to have a wrinkled seed you must have two R's. So definitely whenever we see a wrinkled seed, okay, we know that we can tell its genotype from its phenotype. However, whenever we have a round-seeded plant, it could be either homozygate or heterozygate, so its genotype cannot be directly observed. Mendel worked out a method for determining the genotype when he could not tell by just looking at the phenotype alone. What was the system he developed? Explain the genotypes he determined using the system. So Mendel developed something called the test cross. It's not ethical to use on humans, but it's most definitely ethical to use it on plants. He crossed the organism with the dominant type phenotype that we know for sure. Or he could test it with the homozygous recessive individual. So, if for example, if we have a dominant phenotype, let's say big R and unknown, and we cross it with, let's say, a homozygous recessive, fully homozygous recessive. If all of the offsprings are round, the unknown parent is likely homozygous homozygous dominant because I guess there is a possibility that it's always gonna pass the big R. However, that is really, really, really low. But if there's a 1-to-1 ratio of round to wrinkle, then the unknown parent is heterozygote of what is this? Heterozygote C shape. Front and hind wings similar in size and shape, and a folded parallel to the body when at rest. Dame, dame, dame self-lies. 1b. Hind wings wider than the front wings near base and extend on either side of the body when at rest. These are dragonflies. Use the dichotomous key to answer the following questions. Identify the organism shown in the diagram. Explain how you did this. I don't think we can do this. Can we? Oh no, I don't think we can. Yeah, let's skip this one. The mammalian respiratory system is sometimes described as employing a negative pressure. The frogs, on the other hand, uses positive pressure. So, what do these terms refer to? Design an experiment that would test which system is more efficient at delivering oxygen from the near environment to the lungs. So, for mammals, it's that when we contract, when we breathe in, so when our diaphragm and intercostal, actually no, when our diaphragm and intercostal muscles contract, we expand our cavity. So this creates a pressure lower than the outside pressure inside of the lungs. So this causes the air to be pulled in. However, the frog is different. It lowers the floor of its mouth. It draws the air in, then it closes its nostril and elevates the floor of its mouth. So by decreasing this value, he's actually increasing the pressure. Therefore, he's forcing the air under positive pressure down into the lungs. So relative to the outside, relative to the atmosphere pressure, Mammals, we have a lower atmospheric pressure, and for frogs, they have a higher or positive. They have a positive pressure inside of their body. Therefore, for mammals, it's negative pressure, and for frogs, it's positive pressure. Let's go ahead and develop an experiment. So to start, we must make a hypothesis. So what will happen? Either we can say the negative pressure system is more efficient, or the positive system is more efficient. So I'm going to go ahead and say the negative system is more efficient. Why? And how can I determine this? Well, first I will have to use two sealed containers, I guess. One will contain some sort of mammal lung, and It's gonna be connected to a diaphragm, and one with the frog lung, and it's gonna also connect it to like a pump. So I'll use a gas sensor to measure the concentration in each of the chamber at the start. I'll activate the models, like lowering the diaphragm or operate the pump. So basically, frogs use this pump, so I'll operate this fake pump that I developed. So I'll give them a set number of breaths. So basically, I could do like 20 breaths or 30 seconds, something like that. So make sure they're running for the same time. Then I'll measure the final oxygen concentration in both chambers. And the system that has a lower final oxygen concentration means that it has extracted more oxygen. So by the more oxygen it uses means that it has greater efficiency. So we have to control though. There's a few control variables that we have to make sure it's correct. So we have to ensure the initial concentration is equal, to make sure the lung volume is equal, the number of breaths is identical, or the number of seconds that we run is identical. Yeah, there are a few things to watch for. This is a 10-mark question, so really have to mention all your control variables. Now let's get to application. The heterotrophic protist Hyena behaves like a predator until it ingests green algae. Alga, I guess. Once ingested, the alga loses its flagella and cytoskeleton. The Hyena, now a host, switches to photosynthetic nutrition, gains the ability toward light, and loses its feeding apparatus. Explain how this behavior could be linked to endosymbiosis and the evolution of eukaryotic cells from prokaryotic cells. There's a few points that they want you to hit here. Yes, the endobiosis theory and all of that. Anyways, so this behavior is basically like a modern analogy for the endosymbiotic theory. It's also an enlarged version because back in the days we mentioned that a single cell organism ate another single cell organism, and magically this smaller single cell organism was like, oh wait, look, I just got ingested, but this guy could protect me, so I'll make a trade. You can protect me, and I'll give you energy, so it becomes mitochondria or something. Anyways, this theory proposes that eukaryotic cells evolve from prokaryotic cells when a larger heterotrophic prokaryote engulfed the smaller photosynthetic prokaryote, but didn't digest it. The smaller cells then became what we call an endosymbiote, which eventually it evolved into an organelle like chloroplasts or mitochondria. So similarly, in our case, the Hatena eats the alga, which then loses its independent structures and becomes a permanent integrated photosynthetic for the host. So this changes the host's entire fundamental body, just as the first chloroplast changed the fate of whatever eukaryotic cells ate it. It now became the only organism really to be able to photosynthesize, and that is a very big thing because that is what made human lives possible. Now, let's go on to the next question. A certain breed of cattle in England produces good meat when a particular gene is heterozygous. Don't know how exactly we define good meat, but the same gene is lethal when it's homozygous recessive. How would a farmer produce the best meat without losing or killing any cattle? So the farmer should always cross between two heterozygous cattle. So this cross produces offspring with the genotype ratio, sorry, one homozygous dominant, which is good meat, and two heterozygotes, which is also good meat, and we unfortunately have to kill one. So this strategy ensures that at least two-thirds of the viable offspring will produce the best meat, and the lethal gene is it's predictable and it's a manageable loss. So note that whenever we cross two homozygotes together, we can't actually do that. So if you come here and tell me, I'm going to cross two big bee, a homozygote with another, with a recessive homozygote, and I'm gonna look at you and be like, whoa, whoa, that little bee has already died. How are you gonna cross it, right? So this is actually when we cross two heterozygotes, this is actually the best way to manage it. Anyways, let's go ahead and do the next one. The Rocky Mountains used to be so much higher than they are today. Over time, the mountains have changed. They have eroded by weather and are not as tall as they used to be. This is an example of evolution. Just playing your answer with the definition of evolution in your own own words. So unfortunately, no. This is not evolution. Because, first of all, I get it that people see plants as life, but mountains is it's not really life. It can't evolve and adapt. Mountains is made out of rocks. Unfortunately, rocks do not have any sign of life. It can't do photosynthesis, can't breathe, or whatever. Anyways, so if evolution, in my opinion, is usually defined as change in the heritable genetic traits of a population of organisms over multiple generations, could be tens, hundreds, billions, millions. The erosion of Rocky Mountains is it's a geological process. It involves physical and chemical weathering of the rock, but it doesn't involve changes in the genetic makeup of the rock. If the rock even had a genetic makeup in the first place. So no, this is not a real example of evolution. Number 28. A 55-year-old male has a persistent cough that produces mucus. He states that he is exposed to airborne irritants, including high concentration of dust in the workplace. He has worked at the same place for about 10 years. Wow. Which respiratory disorder is this person suffering from? Likely. Is there more than one possibility based on the given information? Explain. So, we learned this. This person is likely suffering from chronic bronchitis or bronchitis. This is characterized by persistent mucus producing cough lasting for months or years. It's caused mainly by long-term exposure to irritants like dust, or if this guy is a heavy smoker. Yes, there's most definitely more than one possibility. Whenever you look at these type of questions, and they're like, okay, make a proof, pretend like your doctor house, and diagnose the patient, and you're like, oh yeah, most definitely. No, most of the time, there's most definitely more than one possibility, because when you look at one thing and you look at, they gave you like how much? They gave you one symptom and one key fact here. This is most definitely not enough to determine. So, all right, the video cut off. Anyways, so there's most definitely more than one possibility. Right now, when we look at this could also indicate asthma, potentially occasional asthma triggered by irritants, or the COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which also actually includes chronic bronchitis. Further tests, like testing for lung capacity, would pretty much be needed for a definitive diagnosis. Anyways, let's go ahead and do this. The drooping bell-shaped flowers of Canadian columbine, whatever that is, are adapted for cross-pollination. However, if the flower has not been pollinated previously, self-pollination can occur. If cross-pollination occurs after self-pollination has already taken place, the pollen from cross-pollination reaches the base of the style before the pollen from self-pollination. Explain how this adaptation for reproduction benefits the plants. So basically, this adaptation ensures that genetic diversity will happen, while it also guarantees reproduction. So the self-pollination here actually acts like a safe plan, or like a plan B. So if cross-pollination fails, the plants will still reproduce. However, by having the pollen from cross-pollination fertilize it first, the plant basically gives prioritization to the genetically diverse pollen. So this will maximize the chance of being fit by promoting outbreeding, while it will also combine beneficial alleles from different parents and reduce the negative effects of inbreeding. However, if this doesn't work, it will still make sure that it's still alive. It has children, so it's still fit, I guess, in a sort of way. Now let's move on to communication questions. Being overweight is a huge concern for many North Americans. Uh, yeah. The weight loss consultant claims that the problem can be easily solved by surgically removing the section of obese people's digestive systems. You wish to demonstrate to your friends that such solution could prove dangerous. Prepare a chart and list 5 components of the human digestive system in one column and the consequences of remove a part and the entire component in the second column. So I'm gonna pick 5 parts first. So stomach, small intestine, large intestine, pancreas, liver. You go ahead and pick rectum and a. I don't think it'll. Uh, uh, I don't think that really works. Anyways, to remove the stomach, you're gonna have reduced capacity and you're gonna have dumping syndrome. So basically, something you eat, it's probably gonna take you like an hour to maybe 2 hours to get it out. If we remove a part of it, if we remove the complete stomach, uh, that is not good. We're not. This person is gonna be not gonna be able to live his life without like a medical intervention. There's literally no site for protein digestion or controlled nutrient delivery to intestine. So this guy, he has to be on pills and probably be on a needle and a medical bed all day long, all life long. Now my second part is small intestine. So if we remove a part of it, we are losing a lot of absorption of nutrients, and this likely leads to vitamin deficiencies, huge, and I mean like a gigantic amount of weight loss, which I guess it works. But if specifically we remove a part of a section, then we will probably lose like one part of nutrient digestion. So for example, if we lose like ileum, this will remove B12 absorption. But if we remove like part of duodenum, then we'll lose like more protein absorption. If we completely cut this small intestine off, we're gonna die, and we probably need to inject the patients with nutrients every single 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that the patient still survives. Large intestine, if we remove a part of it, we reduce water absorption. This can lead to diarrhea, and when you're doing heavy exercise, could lead to electrolyte imbalance. If we remove the whole of it, watery diarrhea and significant electrolyte loss could happen. Very chronic. It's not as bad as the previous two, but it's still very bad. 4 is pancreas, so reduced production of digestive enzymes. So this means we can't absorb fats because its whole purpose is to produce and break down fats. So by removing a part of it, we're reducing our absorption of fats. And if we remove the entire pancreas, lose. We're gonna also have, I guess, a severe malnutrition. So this is kind of similar to stomach. This is due to the lack of digestive enzymes, and we're gonna have diabetes because we don't have insulin. Liver can regenerate actually. So partial removal of liver is it's always tolerable. But I know when I say this, but you can actually sell. Okay, no, actually, no, never mind. I don't actually no. You could sell a part of your liver, and eventually it's going to grow back. I'm not encouraging this, but I don't think you should do it. But yeah, a partial removal of the liver is actually beneficial, but I don't really see how it actually reaches the goal of these people trying to lose some weight. Anyways, if we remove the entire thing of it, unfortunately we can't regenerate. Not how it works. So liver failure, this is fatal without a transplant. If we don't have a liver, not good. So liver is essential for protein synthesis, detoxification, and metabolism. Remove it, you're dead. Anyways, let's move on to the last question. The straw Venn diagram showing the similarities between the vascular system and the circulatory system of animals in the animals. So let's go ahead and start. So for plants, it transports water, minerals, and sugar. So it's only for water. It's only for plants because apparently, well, not apparently, we know that circulatory system is mainly of blood. There's no way going to transfer water through blood, so that's not how it works. Plant vascular systems, they're composed of non-living tissues. So xylem vessels are basically dead at maturity, and they're driven by passive forces and active transport. So passive forces like transpiration, root pressure, and yeah, animal circulatory system transports oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, and wastes. And it also includes a central pump, which the plant doesn't have, which is our heart, by the way. It also contains plants that it contains cells that fight diseases, which is our white blood cells. And that is three already. And now let's talk about the similarities. So both systems are tubes that transport essential substances throughout the organisms. So in blood we have blood vessels, and in plants we have the tubes, really, the xylems and the foam. And both are crucial for distributing nutrients and removing waste, maintaining homeostasis. And that is pretty much it. That is all the questions in the grade 11 biology final exam. Yeah, so I probably earned 100, and I hope all of you guys get an 100 on your exam as well. Anyways, good luck, people.